So I'm here to tell you that there are nice things from the nature that we can learn, we can practice, we can use at work, we can use in life, and we can be more successful, by the way. So, shortly, I'd like to speak about the pearls, okay, from Wikipedia, okay, just shortly. What is it about, how it comes from? Usually it comes from some oyster. Okay, there are two kinds of pearls. One comes from chemistry, another one from the nature. So I'm going to speak just about the nature ones. Now, the oyster overall, really interesting element in nature. From outside, nothing that would you put somewhere where your guests will, let's say, have a chance to tell how nice flat you have. On the other hand, if you look inside, most probably from 99% there will be something really nice. It can be pearl, it can be something else. Now, what is connected to the pearl is that they are being born just from disruptive elements. It can be piece of a sand. It can be old bone of a fish. So many crazy things are really becoming the basic nature of something unique, something valuable. Afterwards, what the oyster does is to produce, let's say, to put the layers around it, around such disturbing element, and creating new and new parts, pieces of that, what we call calcium carbonate layer. Okay? Shortly I will introduce why it's so important. I was speaking about the waves. By the way, they are cleaning inside of that, let's say, shellfish pieces, and then processing the nature, let's say, helping, let's say, to clean it up from outside. And then the last one, usually the value of such pearl is being defined by its size and then by the color. So I'm going to speak about it. Now let's start. Very important factor of nowadays. Have you recognized that our culture, especially in Europe, now face much more fear than it was ever happening before? I mean, we being on this earth for maybe 20, 30, 40 years, we now face much more from the fear than it was ever here for us. Okay, why it's so important? When I started, I said in the beginning, if you want to experience just something what will be healthy, safe and secure, don't look for innovations. If you go for the dynamic, if you go for something when you will face uncertainty, also the good things can happen there. And I'm going to show you some example. Yeah, 14th of July this year, what has happened in Nice? In France. Okay. 19-ton cargo truck appeared on the main boulevard d'Anglaise, where there were people celebrating the Day of Independence for France. There were hundreds of people on the main street, thousands around and so on, with the big fireworks. And nobody knows from where and how and so on, but there was one big truck driving over the street like a tic-tac and hitting the people. What happened? Okay, it was stopped by the police after driving more than 2 kilometers and so on. What was reported by the news afterwards? Within 24 hours, we did know everything about the killer. Did you recognize? Okay. This face appeared on the newspapers within 24 hours. And by the way, we already knew almost everything about that guy. He was coming from Tunisia, he was 31 years old, he had a 3-year-old daughter. He was several times in a crime and so on, spent his first years in France trying to find the best job for him and so on, several times fired. Many things what you can discover in the news. But how inspiring is it? What can we do with that? Nothing. On the other hand, how many of you recognize that there was one person on a scooter, on a motorbike, that was trying to hit that driver, that killer, and stop the whole cargo truck? Did you recognize? There was one young man, Alex Miguez, and he was, by the way, also afterwards recognized by the police as the guy who, by the way, saved at least 10 another lives of the people because of the fight with the driver. During that time, during that couple of 100 meters, when he was on the track, And when he was trying to stop it and so on, the police started to think about, wow, that might be something wrong, something strange. And afterwards, they just started to shoot the driver. So finally, what had happened is that we recognized there was somebody really great behind it. Now, if you read now the newspapers, you can find some basic facts. But it's really strange that comparing number of the facts we know about the killer, comparing to the facts of the person who really started that securing action, it's almost nothing. If we would understand the impact, and if the newspaper guys would understand the impact, they would celebrate that guy. We would know everything, like from that killer perspective, what we know, we would know almost the same facts. By the way, if you open even the French newspapers, you will find nothing. It's not interesting. It's not interesting enough for them, just because people usually react on the bad things immediately. Our mind is simply programmed like that. Whenever we hear negative news, immediately we react. When we hear something positive, it takes time. And when it takes time to figure out what's good and so on, usually people lose attention, then they may choose another website and so on. So that's why it's not that much interesting for the newspaper guys to produce really good news. But it's so important because finally that guy was inspiring another guys who created afterwards some groups of the people that were thinking about who might be the heroes of our times and who are the guys that we can now see as really, let's say, the best guys that can inspire. For me, this is a person that, for example, have my trust since the first information that I received about him. He never accepted any request for an interview. We know some basic facts just from his brother, by the way. But I can tell you, trust is not a checklist. Trust is something what the people will have when they risk their life and when they, let's say, put some added value. And I can tell you, I have 3 years old daughter. I would have no doubt to risk it and let's say, give a go with such guy, let's say, somewhere in France, and then for a couple of hours, just leave her with such a person. Without knowing too much. I know he risked his life, and he did everything what he could just to save the people that he never know, that he did never know before. For now, some of the people are coming to him and asking him what was done and so on, and now they are thanking him. So that's something quite important for the, let's say, beginning of the introduction. We face completely different environment than we did 1 year ago or 2 years ago. Anyway, the dynamic, when we see what are the positive things coming from the dynamic, we can use it for our growth. So I'd like to continue with that. Composite, which means whenever in a nature you see that things are moving and so on, usually it has at least 2 dimensions. Like what we can see from this hard and soft part of the, let's say, mother of the pearl, the liquid, how it's done and so on, it has 2 main essences. So one hard material, another one is soft one. Like, yeah, from the wall material, let's say, if you will put just the bricks on each other and so on, most probably such house will not last for more than 1 month, maybe during the summer, but not really something safe and secure. So you need the material that will be also both hard and safe. The safety comes from that soft pieces. What is in our culture important is to understand that the innovations in our culture come from both understanding the technology impact, but as well as with emotions, handling them and understanding them, how they can bring more security, for example. And this is bringing the new values. This is what our society expects from us. I recognize majority of the guys here come from IT environment. Yeah, some of the people that predict the future and so on say like IT will influence our culture even more than it happened in the past decades. Now, it has quite big pressure on all IT industry to produce the environment that will be much safer than we ever had before. So security on the first place, not only for the bank or insurance, for everyone. Okay? So when we look for something that has some dimension in it, and so on, it needs to be really happening and having the hard and soft part of the business inside. So shortly, if you are able to achieve something like this, most probably your result will be, let's say, coming from quite cheap pieces, anyway, producing high value, and most probably long-lasting. Easy as that. Moving to the next, quite important how you handle the emotions. We need to discipline emotions. I believe usually what was said about the IT guys, yeah, they are usually people without emotions. I can tell you, not at all. I used to have seminars and educations for such people, and I can tell you sometimes I see at the end they are crying. And they are telling me, I never considered it before, and so on, just because they are, firstly, for the first time, understanding impact of their business, of their work. That's usually the issue of the IT business, that we don't see the end consumers behind it. We don't see the impact. But once you recognize how you save life by some command in a shell of units, and when there are some witnesses coming to you and telling to you how you secured the business of someone and finally the life of someone, it's completely life-changing experience. I can tell you that. So this is something very, very unique, and it comes, by the way, from the book called As a Man Thinketh by James Allen, more than 100 years old book. And he was just comparing the human lives with the garden. And he was telling, like, if you imagine weeds, they don't need any human interaction to grow. By the same spoken, the bad habits, the negative things, Murphy's laws, knocking on your doors, and so on, will simply appear without any attention. You didn't need to spend time to think about how to make something really bad. It comes to your mind automatically. Anyway, if you would like to have and see grown some exotic flowers, like orchids, roses, whatever, something that was cultivated by the people, it needs special care, long-term support, and by small pieces, every day, patience, and so on, having the things done. Without that, there will be another weed coming on your garden, growing from the cracks of the sidewalk, without any attention, without any encouragement to grow. Okay? Now, how to work with that? How to make those exotic flowers in our mind grow? There are special processes and procedures that are important. Firstly, think hard on your life and on your job. Most people really work hard during their, 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Unfortunately, not all of the people really think hard about the impact of their work, of their 8, 10, 12 hours a day. Sometimes, when we have time, we try to think about it, but it's quite obvious that we forget it when there is pressure on us, when there is something really big expected and so on, and has to be delivered immediately. And that's just something where I'd like to stop for a while and let you know from my personal experience, whenever I feel that I'm under the pressure and I have to deliver something with a high quality, I just stop doing anything. I try to figure out what's the impact. I try to understand the basic questions, annoying questions of my 3-year-old daughter. Daddy, why? Why is it so? What is behind it? Why do we do it? Where do we go? You know, that's something really, when you hear it for the first 3-5 times, really nice. But when you hear it for the 28th time in a row, it's completely devastating. Especially if you are in a car and on a 5 hours road to Croatia. Okay? This is something what I can tell you quite important always to figure out what's behind it. And there is just one question that can solve everything. And once you are able to figure out the basic why, most probably you will be successful with your work, with your activity. So, as well as with the innovation, so think hard about your job. You will discover great things. Again, something coming from my personal experience. I'm in IT for something about 20 years. And what I observed many times repeatedly, when I try to work with the most senior technical guys in a company, usually the work was done quite quickly, effectively, and so on, but not long-lasting. What was missing with the most senior guys was that excitement, was that moment of having really hunger for success, for sex as well. But I would say success is the main motivating driver for any beginner. Okay, anyone on this earth would like to experience success, maybe sex as well. But now I would like to rather speak about the success. It's quite important to have that personal experience. And what is really different with those master guys, they don't take as a success something what is achieved repeatedly. So, by the same spoken again, when we speak about the most innovative companies and the countries of the world, like imagine Japan in the years of 70s, 80s and 90s of the last century. It was the most innovative company. Now, when we speak about the innovations, what are the companies that you can now really think of that are on top of their industries by innovations? Tesla. But now, majority of Tesla business is, let's say, supported by US developers, not by Japanese. So, very similar is for now many companies, IT and innovative companies, move out of Silicon Valley. And they are established now in San Francisco, Chicago, some other areas. Why? Because there are the people who already became masters. And they really don't take it emotionally, any kind of new things for them, let's say like regular small successes, is not something what they celebrate. There is nothing to celebrate if it's so much often repeating. Anyway, that's a habit that can be learned as well. And we see it on the companies, some of the companies that are every year repeatedly motivating their people to have a hunger for success. I'd like to wish you to experience it, to have big hunger for something unique. And I'm not speaking now only about companies like Apple, about companies like Facebook. There are really top innovative companies of the last decade that focus every year just on, let's say, discovery and new value for new people, nothing more. Do you know what's now the biggest business for and the biggest challenge for Mark Zuckerberg from Facebook? He claimed to have internet connection at least for 7 billion people until the year 2020. So he's now spending his life, energy, everything, his work, just to bring internet to all the countries of the world. So this is a hunger for success. Okay? Moving to the end, let me jump to how important from the value perspective comes the size and the color. It's not so obvious to have, let's say, approach when somebody asks you to produce something to check for how many people will my work have an impact. But that's exactly what we should care about. That's something what is expected from any innovator, to search for the biggest impact. And of course, you know it, it's like a golden circle from one of my favorite speakers, Simon Sinek, speaking about the why. Okay, everything starts from the why. And I believe this is the question that you will also remember from my speech. If you can remember something for your work, please remember this one word, why. Okay? Whenever you do something, think about what's the impact. Why do you do it? For whom it is? And what will be the impact after 10, after 20, after 100 years? What will remain here on this earth once there will be end of your days here? What would be an impact? Once you solve it, you're done. You are the biggest innovator of the earth. Okay, example. I like now example of 3D printing. What has happened in the last 2 years in this industry? really many companies now look for the innovations in this area. Just because when it started 5 years ago, usually what was advertised was picture like this. There is some toy that is produced and so on. You can play with this, for example, I don't know, your dog, pet, whatever, small kid can play with that. Well, quite nice, but this is not solving the human needs, basically. This is not supporting us. What has changed in the last 2 years that those companies started to focus on medical industry. And you can see now that a lot of the pieces like broken bones and so on, for even now already pioneering it for the people, but it started with animals. So immediately when your dog or cat and so on, with some accident, experiences some broken leg, you can, by the patterns that are already predefined on your 3D printer, fix it within 5 minutes. Completely different value provided by the same environment. So whenever you find the biggest value, you move your product somewhere else. And that's something what I would like to leave as a last message. If we speak about overall, let's say something inspiring from the pearls being born, it's quite important to remember a few basic facts. First one, any good innovations come from trouble. You're just solving some issue. If there is no issue, any improvement on something what has no value has no sense. So that's why it's good to think about what are the things that can be improved. Whenever you wait in some shop in a queue, it's space for innovation. Whenever you are somewhere where people have to take the voice louder and so on, it's a space for innovation. Whenever you have your mind occupied by the, well, crap and so on, it's a space for innovation. And there can be many examples. So it's good to check it from this perspective. Then there are some layers, what I believe important for the long-lasting future of all the innovations. So the layers of calcium, something really big. There can be technology or it can be some patent, whatever. Question of carbonate layer, these are the soft skills. Usually those are the people and their emotions behind it. Question of the size, belief and this rookie factor. Okay, hunger for success. The last moment, impact for the masses. This is usually the dimension of the innovation, and finally the value. So, the final word. I'm really happy to be with so many young people that have still enough time to influence the world and make an impact. Make the world smarter, make the world better, make the world the way you want it to be. Maybe you recognize it's quite a mess around us, not only because of terrorist attacks. Even without them, we would have quite a lot of issues to solve and space to innovate. Now, my basic word to you is to, let's say, learn, practice the habit of innovator. If you will have an impact on the people around you, on the people who you love, on the people who are, I don't know, just walking by on a daily basis, this is the impact that will remain here on this earth. People will remember what you do just when you create an impact. And there is just one basic thing how to handle it. Whenever you start to do something, just ask the question, why? Thank you.